Well, good morning, everyone. It is the fourth day well, this is going to start out good. It is the fourth day of February, 2014. And, sitting here waiting for the snow to happen. I love snow just as much as anyone else out there. But I can honestly say I've probably about had enough for this year. So, forecast coming up. We are expected at least a foot of snow where I'm at right here in Indianapolis, depending on where the line comes in and falls. I know it's heading east, so anyone east of Indianapolis, expect some significant coverage all the way up into Massachusetts again. But temperatures right now, we are 23 degrees, supposed to get a high of 29 today. The nice thing about this storm is I'm looking at the 10-day forecast. It does not look like we're going to be 30 below like we have been recently, but we will be down into some single digits. So definitely, make sure you're ready. We've seen it over and over and over again so far this year. Anytime we get some snow, the panic that goes on beforehand with people that weren't paying attention. So just make sure you're ready. I know Missouri, you guys are already getting it, looking at the radar map, but this is not the end of it. Looking ahead, I know they were watching a disturbance down in the Gulf that could be set up for a nor'easter this weekend, Sunday into Monday. So a couple more storms on their way, at least through February. Quite a bit of ice that's on the south end of this storm coming through. So you guys in Kentucky, I know you just got hammered over the last couple of days with some snow, but they're expecting some ice down your way too. So do what you need to do ahead of time. Make sure your family's prepared. Make sure that anytime there's heavy snow like this, along with ice, you have potential for power lines being down, being without electricity for days on end. Especially over a good sized chunk of the viewing area. You know, we're talking about, having to need, significant amounts of human power, the electric line guys to get out there. And, sometimes there are areas that don't see that happen for a week or more. So, do what you need to do to keep your family safe and get ahead of everyone else. You know, if you need to go pick up a few things, then get out there and get it done now. Don't wait till the last minute. And please, I wrote a blog about this. Don't rely on the meteorologists out there. You know, they're a good group of guys. A lot of them put their lives in danger, reporting with tornadoes and stuff, things like that. You know, they're humans. They're relying on a computer program. So could they be wrong? Yes, we saw that in the South last week, when Atlanta and Birmingham and all those guys just got hammered. And a lot of people were stranded. Thousands and thousands of school kids, were either left at school or on buses. And were there for a long time, sometimes overnight. You know, it's not someplace that you want your child to be, in the middle of a storm. Probably not. I could be wrong there. I know some parents get excited when their kids go off to school. I was never one of them. I would much rather have my child at home with me, tucked in nice and safe. So, think ahead, don't listen to, here I am preaching. It's your decision. But, do you want to let the school board or your teacher or the principal tell you what to do with your child? And tell you that you have to send your child to school? Is there something wrong with you keeping your child home when there's a storm on its way? Absolutely not. So it's your decision. But first and foremost in my mind is keeping my child safe. So, getting into what's going on this morning, I'm going to talk about my schooling adventure over the last, probably about a year now. If you've been with me for any length of time, you understand that, even last year, my child is in the 7th grade this year. Last year in the 6th grade is when it really started. He was transferred Of course, sixth grade, you go to the middle school. Okay. And at the beginning of the year, well, at the end of fifth grade, to begin with, he was signed up to go to one of the two middle schools here, where we reside. Found out last minute they were moving him to another one. Doesn't seem like all that big of a deal, but you have to understand, my child is an introvert trying to work his way out of that. It hasn't always been easy. I know when he was little, and my husband's sitting across from me, shaking his head. When he was little, when we would go to church, it took him probably 4 months of him just literally grabbing hold of my leg, wrapping his arms around it, wrapping his feet around the bottom of my leg, and that's how I would walk into church. We would sit there when either he sat on my lap or I was holding him. Some of that was caused by an issue with a dentist earlier in his life, and some of it was caused just by the fact that, he's an introvert. It is what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm also an introvert. Am I always one? Can I work my way out of that? Yes, I've learned over the years how to do that. If I'm in a business setting, I can be the biggest extrovert that you've seen. But, he's only 13 right now, and this has been going on, for 13 years. So for him to be thrown into an unknown situation sucks for him. And unfortunately, too, he also inherited his mother's stomach. So anytime anything is upsetting, he gets IBS, he gets sick to his stomach. It's just normal for us, if you want to call it that. I've learned how to work around mine, learned the triggers for it, can function like a normal adult and move on. He's only 13. We're still working through that stuff. And quite honestly, it wasn't until the last few years that we actually figured out that he was having stomach issues. And that goes back to, both my parents are gone. My grandparents have passed on, and cancer runs rampant through my family. I remember my grandfather had most of his insides removed, his stomach, his intestines and stuff removed. So this is something that I'm very sensitive to when it comes to how my body functions. And my first couple kids that I have never had this problem. And quite honestly, did we realize that the youngest had it until the last few years? No, because we've taken precautions to make sure that, we recognized his personality early on, and we've always taken precautions that made him comfortable. So it goes back to him going into sixth grade. Had it set up, the end of fifth grade, they go and they visit the middle school, they get to know the hallways, they get to meet people. He's with his group of friends that he's had, which is awesome. A couple days before school was to start, I happened to open an email up that had no header and just thought it was odd. And, for some reason I opened it up. I don't usually, but I did. And it was a female that said, "Hey, Connor, I'm glad to be your teacher. Welcome to the school, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, well, wait a minute here. This isn't the person that we knew of to be his teacher this year. So I called the school. Turns out they transferred him to the other middle school, without letting us know. So we were scrambling big time because, of course, your supply list changes. He doesn't know the school layout. He is, pretty much up in the air. New bus route, the whole 9 yards. None of his friends are going there. It just happens they changed the boundary lines and he got sucked into the other school, and that was the end of it. It took him probably, I'd say, a month to figure out how to open his locker because they're all different. And the school trip that he took the first time, they learned how to do all that stuff. Didn't know any of the teachers. None of his friends were there. It was absolutely miserable for him. So not off to a good start to begin with, which set his stomach on edge. as you can well imagine. So, does he miss more school than an average student? But yeah, he does. I think, when this started, he was at 10 days, which quite honestly is normal for him. So, we dealt with it. Last year, I know in one instance specifically, the school doesn't always inform you of things that go on when your kids are there, just so you understand that. He came home in a pair of the dreaded red sweatpants. And we were like, Connor, what happened? He goes, Mom, I had an accident at school. They made me wear them. He's in tears coming home, because he had an accident, with his bowels, and instead of calling his parents and saying, hey, can you bring him a change of clothes or whatnot, they have a pair of red sweatpants. Now, every kid in the school knows what these red sweatpants are about. They made him wear those the rest of the day instead of calling us. He wore them on the bus home, and on the bus, you ride with kids that are older than you. Absolutely horrifying event for him. If your child was an extrovert, he might have joked it off. He might have done something like that, but it was quite devastating for my son. So we got him through that. We got him back on track. This year comes around, and we start off the school year. Now, I'd already thought about homeschooling, already been checking into it, and just couldn't get myself there. Looked at all the pros and cons on it, and quite honestly, the biggest concern that we had was the social aspect of it. And him not seeing his friends and having social interaction with kids his own age, and, all of that. It's funny because I was talking to my brother yesterday about it because he saw my post that we had removed him from school, and that was his biggest concern too. My brother is 12 years younger than I am and has a child who is in kindergarten, a boy. So yeah, he had concerns, and that was his biggest concern, was the social aspect of it. Then there's the deprogramming. When I thought about homeschooling before, you think about, looking online at things, you see women with rooms set up, elaborate schoolrooms in their homes, and, textbooks and all of that. And I'm thinking, oh, hell, I work a full-time and a half job, I can't do that. There's no way, and try and homeschool full-time, get that all set up, and, how am I going to do that? Where, basically you think about, I have to homeschool from 9 to 5 or, whatever hours during the day. It's just a perception that you have, just based upon doing a quick search on the internet. And I drug my feet for a long time, and it's like, how can I do this? And it's not like, sometimes I question my sanity, but I'd like to think I'm not a stupid person. I think that, I'd like to think that I would be able to homeschool my child if, I had the right atmosphere, the right hours, all of that. So I dragged my feet for a while. So come around to this year, and a couple weeks ago, we get a note from the prosecutor's office stating that we have to go meet the family probation officer. So we've been there last year, and I've talked about that. So, we kind of know the drill. So we end up, last year when we went, it's at the juvenile detention center in the county. So we go down there, and we're sitting there. We walk in, and the place is, there's chairs there, and that's it. You feel like you're in, it's right beside the jailhouse and stuff like that. So you already have this feeling that you're doing something wrong. Now, we're there for him missing a couple extra days of school that the school didn't like, and because he has a health problem, which has been documented through his physician. So we walk up to the window, we explain we're there for his appointment, and they hand us a clipboard with a bunch of questions on it. So we sit down, and we're filling out the questions, and they're asking things like, what gangs do you hang out with? How long you been doing drugs? Are you sexually active? Just questions like that. So we answered the ones that pertain to us, and we left the rest of them blank. And, have Connor walk the clipboard back up to the front desk, and the woman takes it and she looks at it and she starts screaming at him, like literally screaming, "Why haven't you filled the rest of this out?" And she's just going off. So yeah, I beelined it right there. And I said, "Listen, lady, this doesn't pertain to us. He's not in a gang. He doesn't do drugs. He doesn't drink alcohol. He doesn't do any of that. We're here because he has a health issue and the school's upset because he missed too much school." So she shut out the window. We go in, we talk to the lady that he has to meet with, and she even informed us at that time she thought this was asinine. Why were you even here? You seem like loving, normal parents, the school oversteps their bounds. She actually said that to us, and it's all about the money the school gets when your child's ass sits in a seat every day in their building. Whether they teach you correctly or not, it doesn't matter. It comes down to the money that they get. Okay, so we go back this year, same drill, except for this year, they assigned us to have to meet and talk with a family probation officer. And so we get hooked up with her, and, we go meet her and discuss the situation. She's listening to us. She's the liaison between us and the school at this point, dealing with this, and she wants us to go get documentation to get in front of the doctor stating what the problem is. So we do that. We make an appointment. We pay the extra fees. Even though we've done this multiple times, we do as they asked. When we meet with the doctor thinks this is ridiculous. She writes out a note saying that, guess what? This child's going to miss probably a little bit more school than some of the other kids because, the school has rules. You get a fever, you have diarrhea, you can't go to school 24 hours after this happens. So we're following their rules. So she writes him a note, and this is from the doctor, the lady that's gone to college that understands. And she writes him a note and explains, hey, he's going to miss a few extra days of school. It's not going to be unusual for him to miss, 3 days of school a month or so. Get used to it. Well, she didn't write that part, but that's what I just added that. Okay. Anyway, so we take it back, Friday. I take it into, this family probation officer, give her the note. And I was instructed at the last meeting that if we had the note, we wouldn't have to meet with her anymore. Well, I get there on Friday, and she informs me that she was in fact wrong. We have to meet with her every single week, basically until the end of the school year, to discuss whether or not Connor has been in school. So I have to take time out of my week, my work schedule, in order to go meet with someone, basically to let them know what's going on in my life and why my child's in school and permission, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I have an issue with that, but whatever. So as we're sitting there, she goes, well, I have a couple things I want to go over with you also. I was like, okay, well, what is it? She goes, I have a couple things. This is a breakdown, she said, of the last meeting. And this is just line by line, she said, basically what we talked about, and I need you to sign this. Now I'm going to read this to you because I want you to understand what happened. This was filed with the Juvenile Family Court Division, and it's called an informal diversion agreement. Parties signing below have agreed that the delinquent offense committed by my son will be handled without formal court proceedings pursuant to the following conditions. Number one, The child is placed on an informal diversion agreement for the period of 4 months, which basically takes them through the end of the school year. Number 2, the parent and child will pay $60 informal diversion fee. Please make the payment payable to the Juvenile Probation Department in cash, money order, or credit card. The $60 fee must be paid within the first 2 months of the diversion agreement. So they're going to charge us to do this. Number 3, child admits to engaging in the delinquent act, clarified as truancy, violation of compulsory school attendance, a status offense. Number 4, yes, Jules, I completely, Jules is in the chat room and she runs the radio station. Completely understand. Yeah, this is insane. And that's what was going through my head. So I'm glad to see I'm not the only one who thinks that. Number 4, child shall commit no criminal or delinquent offenses while on the informal diversion agreement. If the child is referred to this department for any criminal or delinquent offense or violates this agreement in any way, the state may file this charge. Now, mind you, don't forget, I have a document stating by a physician that the issue is my child has basically IBS and misses a little bit more school. This is where we're at with this. Number 5, child shall immediately notify the probation officer of any change of address or phone number and any subsequent arrests. Number 6, child shall not consume or possess any intoxicating beverage or any drug not prescribed to the child by a licensed physician. Child is not to visit any place where alcohol or drugs are being used, sold, or given away in an illegal manner. Number 7, and listen to this one. Number 7, child shall submit to urinalysis, breathalyzer, or blood test upon request of a probation officer. You, meaning me, will be responsible for the cost of these tests. Number 8, child shall attend school daily with no unexcused absences or tardies. Child must provide a doctor's excuse for any absences. Number 9, child and parent to actively participate and cooperate with the Family Resource Program through Johnson County Community Corrections. All fees are to be paid to the department identified. No personal checks will be accepted. And then they wrap it up. Any violation of the above conditions may result in formal charges being filed with the court. This agreement is effective when signed by all parties. And then it goes on, they actually have our names all nice, neatly typed out, in a place for us to sign. So I'm sitting there, and mind you, I'm by myself. I'm reading through these. And if most of you probably have listened for a while, you can imagine what was going through my head. I thought I handled it quite gracefully. Because quite honestly, I thought my head was going to explode. So I backed up and I said, would you please explain to me, what formal charges would be? And basically, in a nutshell, if we violate these, my child could be removed from my care. I looked at her and I politely explained to her, I'm not comfortable signing these papers. What I wanted to say to her was, are you fucking kidding me? Yes, that was going through my head. But I knew in order to have to deal with this, I had to remain calm. I'm sure my eyes were bulging out of my head. I probably had steam coming out of my ears. But I politely told her, I don't feel comfortable signing these. I said I have a problem with you having permission to take blood from my child anytime you feel like it without asking me. I said I'd like to get a copy of these and I'd like to discuss this with my husband, with a few other people, if you wouldn't mind, if that's not a problem. She looked at me, and she knew. She goes, okay. She printed out a copy. She gave them to me. I said, so these classes that you're talking about. She goes, okay. She goes, here's the next paper. And of the parenting classes that Eddie and I would have to take. And they're called Steps to Success. Now, mind you, Connor is our 5th child. Geez, the other ones are all functioning quite nicely. They all have jobs. They've gotten great grades in school. I would think that by the 5th one, someone would have said and looked at us and said, maybe they know what they're doing. And yes, we have a physician's note that says he's got a health problem here. But no, we got to go to parenting classes. So I'm going through the list of these parenting classes. There's 4 sessions. Each session lasts about 2 hours. And we have to pay for these on top of everything else. It's like, okay, so I'm going through here. And the classes. Truancy effect on life earnings. School attendance linked to delinquency and addiction. Parental supervision impact on delinquency and addiction. Truancy and delinquency effect on driving privileges. Parental and educational neglect. Compulsory attendance laws. And then they'll have guest speakers. We'll get to tour the jail. And meet some inmates who contribute life of crime with lack of education. And then it goes into risk behaviors, alcohol, tobacco, drugs. We'll learn about sexual promiscuity, teen pregnancies, STIs, healthy relationship, internet safety. Mind you, at this time, I wish you all could have been there. I wish I would have had you in my back pocket somehow. Because the things going through my head were unbelievable. And I turned around, I thanked her, and I left. Took a deep breath. I called my husband. I said, Monday, Connor will be removed from the school system. Told him what happened. And I know some of you guys know my husband. He's an extrovert. Like, when we talk about extrovert, he's got a capital E. He is, I refer to him as my social butterfly all the time. He gets energy from people, where I'm quite the opposite. And so you can imagine the string of terminology that was coming out of his mouth at the time. So we got through the weekend. We had some other stuff happen this weekend. So I left the school system to go back to work. And sadly enough, if you could hold a number of people in prayer, I would greatly appreciate that. But one of my employees was shot and killed this weekend while he was on the job. So it's been a very emotional weekend. So I also tried to take that into account. Talked to Connor, let him know what was going on. And yesterday, I printed up a form that, after doing all of the looking through everything and figuring out what to do for the state of Indiana, I mentioned it earlier that my biggest concern was the social factor. I was interviewing a friend of mine that I've known forever, Tracy, who's the Hall of Fame mom, is her website. She was on the radio show a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about that and talking about the issues with, how brainwashed we really are. And it really hit home for me yesterday. And, we were talking about, my biggest concern is, him to be able to spend time around kids his own age doing things like that and whatnot. And, she said, and her kids were in public school. She pulled them out and has been homeschooling them for a while now. And she goes, we all had that. And she goes, now I get to choose who the kids, my sons hang out with. And when you're thrown into the public school system, they're all herded into, basically one room, into one school. And some of the kids in there, would you have your kids friends with or let them hang out with outside of your home? Probably not. But your child has no choice no matter when he goes to school. So she said that's one of the upsides to this is I can choose who my child is around and who can influence him. And she said, and I've looked into this, there are plenty of programs. I actually I'm going to give a lady a call here this afternoon. There are co-ops set around the country of just groups of homeschooling families within each area that you can get in contact with. And they do outside, they go to the zoo together, or they'll go to the Y together, or, they get together in groups of the same age kids. So the social aspect is there. And you get to choose who your kid hangs out with, as opposed to, like I said, just being thrown out there to anyone. So, walked in, had my little form printed up saying that I was going to remove him from the school system. And mind you, I have had no one in my family, sitting there thinking, I have no one in my family in the past at any time that has homeschooled. So I have nothing to go back to rely upon. Eddie's family is the same way. Our families have always sent our children to public school. Do I have friends? Yeah, I've known some people, here and there that homeschool, but never really talked to them too much about it. So, totally winging this. Went onto the Indiana State website for the Department of Education, read up on the laws for Indiana, which luckily Indiana is very lax. There's not a whole lot out there. You just have to make sure that you do let the school know that you're removing your child. If not, he will be counted truant. And geez, you could have to go talk to the family probation officer, which I assure you is not a whole lot of fun. So walked into the school. I have to get buzzed in, which to me was just asinine because they just let us walk in, just on our word. So we walk into the secretary's office, and the first lady was there, and, we said, we're here to remove our child from school. And she's like, okay, we'll sign in and whatnot. I said, no, we're going to remove him permanently. Next thing you know, she's like, well, we have to wait for this lady over here. So we sat down for a minute and waited for her to come back around. She came around and we introduced ourselves as Connor's parents. And we told her that we wanted to withdraw him from the school system and that they were no longer responsible for him. And she just stood there for a moment in complete silence, just looking at us. And it's like, I'm thinking, oh, fucking shit, and finally she got her wits about her and she goes, okay, well, we need to do this. And she was in her own little mini panic going on here. And it's like, I'm watching her and it's like, what the hell, So the next thing she has a paper that, they have to have us fill out. Now, mind you, she hasn't asked me for anything at this point. So it's a paper. We have to sign our names. We have to put Connor's name on there. They sign his student ID number, what grade he's in, and it says my signature below signifies that I have withdrawn my child from the school, corporation and have enrolled him in homeschool instruction. Now, she asked me where he was going to go to school afterwards, private school or whatever. The way it's worded on the state website was that you would just withdraw them to go to a private school, whether it's homeschool or not. And when I told her that, I told her initially that it was a private school. And she started, doing that, hysterical talking real fast. Well, if it's a private school, and if it's homeschool and it's like, lady, calm down here. So another person comes up from the back and stands right there. So the lady that we were dealing with hands a file to the woman that just walked up and starts to talk about another student in front of us and completely acts like we're not there. And it's like, do we need to come back later? Oh, no. And then the lady that we're dealing with introduces us to the other woman and says, this is Connor's blah, blah, parents, and they're here to withdraw him from school. And I'm like, I feel like I'm being set up somehow, and that this is being announced to the entire school, and that there's spotlights on us, and the hidden cameras all have been focused on us. And it's like what? It's one of those, what the hell is going on moments. So they finally get back to us, and the woman is still standing there, and she's not just standing there, she's standing there staring at us, just looking straight at us. And it's like, okay, this is just weird. So we go on, and we get the paper, and there's a question on here. It says, I have filled out the Indiana Department of Education home school enrollment report form. My homeschool number is whatever you're supposed to fill it out. I don't have one. I don't need one. According to the state website, I do not need one. So I sign it. I give it back to her. She's looking at it. She goes, well, we have this other form here, and I forget what it was about. Something to do with, we had to enroll him with the Department of Education. I said, not to be disrespectful here, but to my knowledge, all I have to do is inform you that we're withdrawing him from school. Now, she's in a mini panic attack at this point because I refuse to sign a second paper stating what my intentions are with my child, and to be filed through the Department of Education. To my knowledge, with all of the bookwork I've done before that, that's not true. So I inform her. I said, you know what? I understand that you have to file things stating that we've withdrawn, but I don't. All I have to do by the state law is to inform you that I'm withdrawing him from the school system. No, well, she goes, let me just go get a copy of this. So, mind you, there's a printer with a copier scanner sitting right beside her. She disappears in the back. I look at Eddie. I said, this is a little weird. Right there's a printer. And he goes, well, she's probably back there trying to frantically find the principal. It's like, okay, so we wait, and we wait, and we wait. Finally, she returns. She puts the paper she had into the printer, and she makes a copy of it. Next thing you know, guess who appears? It's the principal. And she comes up, she introduces herself to us, and the other lady says that, we're here to withdraw our son from the school. And the principal's like, okay, well, here's what we need, and we need to know what your homeschool number is. And I informed her at the time that, no, I would hope somebody in the chat room just made a comment that she wanted to call the cops. Honestly, it had crossed my mind quite a few times yesterday. But the principal standing there, she goes, and the other lady chimes in, and she goes, well, I have the copy ready, but they're not giving me their homeschool number. And the principal's like, well, she's stammering around. She doesn't know what to say. We need a homeschool number for this paper. And I'm like, no, according to the website for the state of Indiana, Department of Education, we don't need one. So the principal turns around, and the lady's just freaking out over there. She's like, and I don't know if it's the roof is going to fall in because we don't put a number on this paper or what the hell's going on. But the principal finally says, just put on there, and it is written on here, parents refused to give. So this, oh my God, homeschool number, that we don't really have because we don't need one. They've written on the form, parents refuse to sign. So geez, doesn't that make you feel like you've done something wrong? I mean, I was like, what the hell? So, the lady's like, do you need a bag or anything? Cause I had requested to remove any personal objects from Connor's locker. And, she's like, yeah, yeah, I'm not going to put 666 in there. That would have been funny. Never even thought about that. But, see, this is what I get for paying attention to what's going on in the chat room when I'm trying to talk. I can't multitask this early in the morning. But so the lady initially we talked to, the principal disappears now. She's got, her ass is all jacked up. She's pissed off. So she disappears in the back. Yeah. One of the comments out of her mouth was, I'm sorry that it's come to this. And because I've heard that your sessions with the probation officer haven't gone well. And I look at her and it's like, this has really nothing to do with the probation officer. We would never have had a probation officer if you guys hadn't been such dicks, basically. And totally dismissed their responsibility in any of this. And I'm leaving a lot out because we're only here for an hour. But let me just say, the school is not innocent in anything here. They're the ones that started this whole drama escapade thing going on, and they're the reason why we're removing our son from school. If it hadn't been for their actions, we would not have gone or had to see a family probation officer. But the principal totally dismissed any responsibility they had and totally blamed it on the probation officer, which I plan on talking to here in a little while. It's not even 9 o'clock here yet, so she's probably not in her office. So she walks away. The other lady, I unfortunately met the ice this weekend too, so trying to go up and downstairs with my knee isn't going to happen. So my husband goes down to the locker with the lady and they remove Connor's personal belongings. We did donate out of the goodness of our hearts. My son was in orchestra this year. He played a standing bass, against his will. He did not want to do that, and they signed him up anyways. And we told them multiple times that this was part of the issue going on all this time, and they refused to do anything about it. So we ended up buying a $100 bow for his $200 bow for his orchestra class that we will never use again. So we did donate that out of the goodness of our hearts to some other poor kid that's going to be forced into doing that and doesn't want to. And his parents either can't find it or can't afford one. So we're not horrible people here. So my husband, I go out and leave and wait in my truck for my husband after he cleans out of his locker. And, which is kind of funny because, yeah, a trash bag was needed because it was a mess. So we leave, and yes, I'm looking for the police to show up. I'm looking for all kinds of things to happen, but we leave and pull out of the parking lot, get home, I back into the driveway, and I just sit there. And it's like, what the hell did we just do? And I think it's when the full brunt of how bad our children are programmed, but also how bad I've been programmed over the years. And I sat there and I'm thinking, I've just done something wrong. And that's the feeling I had. But my head is telling me, Lori, you did the right thing here. So I have this little war going on within myself that is horrible to think that other people can make you feel like you've done something wrong when you actually haven't. I personally, in my circumstances, believe we've done the right thing. My child needs to be able to relax. He needs to be able to heal. That wasn't going to happen with him still being enrolled in the public school system. But the way they make you feel, the things they make you do, the hoops they make you jump through, it really hit me. And I had to sit there for a while and try and process all of this. They make you feel like you're a bad person. And that's just fucked up. That's wrong. Because you love your child and you want, now mind you, I understand there are circumstances out there that are really screwed up. But this isn't one of those. And there's no reason why they should have made us feel like they did. There's no reason why they should have put us through what we've been through. So, yeah, they are bullies. It's all about the money. It has nothing to do with the well-being of our children. The stuff they teach the kids in school, the way they teach the kids in school. Now, mind you, I'll put a disclaimer out there. There might be some good teachers, good school systems somewhere out there. We've never had a problem, quite honestly, until we went to this middle school. You know, I was hugely concerned when we moved here at Indianapolis, because I knew my child. And the initial grade school that he was enrolled in here did a wonderful job of bringing him into the fold and making him feel welcome and doing everything that they could possibly do to make him feel wanted here. But man, we hit this middle school and it's what the hell, you know? And this is where we're at. None of my children are no longer in a public school system. We get to do whatever we want to now. We can teach, my child will learn what he wants to learn, what I want him to learn, and it will be truth. It won't be dictated to him by a bunch of people in a room somewhere that think they know what's best for my child. I can do this at any time of the day. It does not have to be 9 to 5. It doesn't have to be Monday through Friday. We can do this on weekends. We can do this on family vacations. Now, instead of reading about alligators, we're slated to go to Florida in March. We can actually go see real alligators without having the school system bark down our backs because my child is going to miss a week of school. Instead of reading about the Rocky Mountains, we can go visit the Rocky Mountains, and it will be considered school. We can start school at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when my child is actually awake, instead of waking him up at 5 a.m. every flipping day and expecting him to be able to function, putting him on a bus and carting him off to some place that doesn't have his best interest at heart. You know, don't forget, a lot of our history books are written by the people that won. So we're going to learn both sides of it, of every story out there, because we understand there's two sides to everything. We're not going to worry about my child being in a school if a shooter walks in, because he'll be at home and him having no way of escaping. I'm not going to worry about, and this was just in the news in Utah, about his lunch account being delinquent. Actually, they owe us money on that one. But, you know, these kids in Utah went to school, and several of them, I think 20 or so, had delinquent lunch accounts. And someone came in the cafeteria in front of the rest of the kids and threw all their lunches away. Wouldn't feed them. I guess the parents are in an uproar, and rightly should be. And, yeah, I don't have to worry about somebody else having my child's best interest at heart anymore. It's our responsibility as a parent to make sure our kids are well taken care of. And the school system, the one that I'm dealing with right now, way overstepped their boundaries. I feel like I just had to go ask for my child back. They have my child removed and given back to me. And that's just messed up. I have several books on their way, which I'll be reviewing coming up in the future. A lot of them have to do with what's called unschooling, and about how to deprogram your child on the way they've been taught over the years to learn, and how to unprogram myself. Because like I said yesterday when I was sitting there in my truck before I got out, it was the full scope of how much, I like to think that I haven't been programmed, that I'm awake to what's going on out there in the world. Because we do look at alternative news, we try and keep up on things, but man, it really hit me yesterday. And, you start looking at that and then it broadens out to, other things, and how much we're controlled, whether we realize it or not. Such as what our government does to us. We like to say that the United States is a free country and that we value our freedom. You start digging into this though, and it's really eye-opening. Very eye-opening on how very little freedom we have. But probably the most startling thing is the people out there that don't even realize how they're being controlled. And they blindly are being dragged around by their nose from one thing to another. And they do what they're told to do, when they're told to do it, how they're told to do it, without even blinking an eye. It's a little startling. Roll that into the full scope of if we ever have but when we have a downgrade situation. When the economy falls. If you're not paying attention out there, emerging markets, bankers jumping off roofs of buildings, Albuquerque, and I need to dig into this today, but Albuquerque, some banks out there are doing a test and you won't have access to your money anymore. We see the freakouts from people right before a snowstorm, and you gotta wonder how bad things are going to be if the economy falls. The signs are here. It's not like, you'd really have to be living with your head under a rock if you don't see it. There are other countries out there right now, Brazil, Venezuela, France. We've seen it happen in Greece, in Cyprus. The devastation that this country is going to go through. Do they not think it's going to affect them? If you're not putting some food up, some water up, not taking the means to protect your family for what's coming, you need to start now. I'm not saying this to panic you. I'm just saying that you really need to pay attention, and you need to really watch what's going on. Don't get caught up in, that person watches Fox or that person watches CNN. they're just going to feed you what they want you to know. They're all one and the same. You really need to find some alternative news sites, which, you know, Jules has done a fantastic job of allowing a great group of people to get out there to be able to speak openly about what is going on. So check out some of the other programs on UCY.tv because they talk very freely about what's going on and how to be ready and what to do. And they're not going to give you the bullshit that you're going to hear on mainstream media. But please, take it upon yourself to make sure that your family is as prepared as you can be. Don't get wrapped up in having all kinds of preps. You know, don't become this giant ninja prepper. I'm going to term it kind of like the mall cops that we have out there, that they think the more stuff you have, the better prepared you are. That stuff can be removed from you. It can be taken from you. We've seen that with tornadoes that have come through and destroyed your entire home. There goes all your preps. Build your knowledge prep. Learn how to do things multiple ways. You need to have a backup to a backup to a backup. Great, you've got water stored, but what happens when that water runs out? Do you know how to get more water? And I'm not just talking about a river, because that can be contaminated upstream, just like we've seen in West Virginia here recently. You need to have multiple ways of getting water. And guess what? In a downgrade situation, you're not going to be the only person looking for that water. So the closer to the home, the better. Can you use your gutters? Things like that. You need to get the knowledge. You also need to know how to filter it. You also need to learn how to purify it multiple ways. Just don't think, hey, I've got some purification tablets or I've got some bleach stored. What happens if that gets stolen or destroyed? You need to have the knowledge to be able to do it multiple ways. You guys take care. Our life is beginning here. I'll see you guys tonight for After Dark.